Bridgerton was bad, which is very upsetting because it started off really promising. Like, seriously. You've got a Regency romance where, like, the costumes and the acting and all the nuance seems great for the first 5 episodes or what have you. The chemistry between Simon and Daphne, the two love interests and protagonists, is very charming and wry. And then they ruin everything by basing it kind of on the book, but not exactly on the book, when they shouldn't have based it on the book at all. To explain the conflict of the romance, the reason why they can't just be together and be in love, it's that Simon doesn't want to have children, and he made a vow to his father that he would not do this because of all the pressure his father put on him as his heir to the Hastings duchy. So the conflict is that in this society, when you are married, you're expected to do that. And also, Daphne, the lady, is really into children. Like, she wants that, and it's assumed that she can't really be happy without that. So when you throw these two people together and you have Simon saying, "No, I can't marry you," and Daphne saying, like, "Oh, okay," but, like, secretly wanting him to marry her, you're gonna run into problems, obviously. In the book, what happened was, and I mean, I haven't read the whole thing, obviously, but Daphne just rapes Simon. She's like, "I want your seed. I'll take it by getting on top of you when you're drunk and, like, asleep." And it's like, reading superficially that one part, it reads as very dark and kind of ominous and frightening. Kind of like, "Oh, that's your protagonist? Oh, I think you did it wrong." And so in the show, they obviously were like, "Ew," and decided not to do that. But for some reason, they were like, "We still kind of need to include the rape. It's very important to us." And I don't know why. I feel like you could have still had conflict without it. Considering you have two characters that are polar opposites. Babies, no babies. Like, they will run into problems even if they're just talking about it. They could have a fight without a rape. They don't need the rape as a catalyst for the fight. They could just have the fight. So in the show, the way they present it is Daphne, who's very inexperienced with sex, like, her mother doesn't even tell her the very basics of it, like penis, vagina. Like, she doesn't even tell her that, like, that's how you conceive a child. Like, she doesn't. Daphne, who I think is a teenager, goes into the marriage bed very unaware of what's going to transpire there. So the good thing is that she's not raped. She's, like, into it. But the problem with that is that she doesn't know how children are conceived. So when Simon keeps, like, pulling out of her at the last second, she doesn't think to herself, like, "Weird, why is he doing that? I thought that the seed for babies," she doesn't have those thoughts because that's not a logical chain for her, because she doesn't know those rules of conception, that seed equals babies. So it takes her kind of a bit to puzzle that out. And when she does, she's very upset that Simon, who told her, I can't have children, what he really meant was, I won't, or it's against my morals, or I can't abide by myself having children. So they have a big argument in which she says, like, there's a difference between can't and won't. And I think that argument could be justified if it didn't happen directly after she sexually assaults him. So the way they've chosen to make this scene go in the show is Daphne, mid-coitus, she's getting it on with Simon, and then she kind of like gets on top of him, and she's like doing her thing, not like that, but she's doing her thing, and he's into it, and then he goes like, ugh, because he's too turned on, he's getting close to, and he's like, get off, except he doesn't get her off of his body, and so he does come inside her, and he's upset. I think he says something like, what have you done? And so it's upsetting for many reasons. One, why couldn't she just talk to him about this problem rather than taking from him, which is not a very nice thing to do in a relationship? Understatement. Two, she looks so smug while she's doing it. Like, the direction in that scene, they probably said, like, Daphne, could you look a bit more triumphant that you're raping your husband? Just a bit more. So that's kind of upsetting because, I don't know, when I'm watching a show or reading a book and there's a protagonist, I want to actually feel like they're good people. Or at least, like, the level of good where they, like, make normal mistakes and not, like, way over the line, unforgivable mistakes. I feel like because she didn't know about coitus, she'd, like, accidentally done this and Simon hadn't been able to remove her, that would be one thing. But the look in her eye tells you that she knows what she's doing, and she's doing it because she feels betrayed by Simon, which is... So anyway, when taking the book and moving toward the movie, they had the option to cut the rape entirely. They were like, they obviously sat around a table and were like, the book is really... it's too much. We should roll back the rapiness of that scene because it's a lot. It's a lot. But they, they were like, well, why should we cut it? Should we cut it entirely? No, we're gonna leave a little rape in. Or who do you think you are? And that's crazy to me. I don't understand why this was necessary. And I'm not saying that it's impossible to tell a story with rape in it and have it be like an interesting story, or even like a through line satisfying story. I liked The Crow, and the woman gets really fridged in that. So the worst part of Bridgerton's handling of this male sexual assault, like on a man, is that they don't act like it happened. They have the woman cuss the guy out immediately afterward as if he's the one in the wrong. And then they kind of just get together in the end, like, everything's fine, having never discussed, like, the horrible ramifications and breach of trust of her actions, Daphne's. It's real bad. This was me watching the show. I went from being like, wow, those costumes, ooh, that acting, the brother is handsome, to like, like, oh, there's some scandal, oh my, ooh, steamy. And then it was like, oh no, it was rape. And then it went to like, oh, are they never gonna talk about that again? Oh no. And so that was me. That was my lived experience watching Bridgerton. The costumes were still good, but the last third of the show just left me feeling totally gaslit, because I feel like I saw a middle of the show that was different from the one they were telling me I saw. They were like, he didn't get sexually assaulted. And I'm like, no, he did. And I mean, even if you don't believe that's what it is, you should still have him be like upset and like set boundaries with her about that going forward. It was a real weird 180 that his character pulled. Daphne essentially says to him, like, you're worthy of love too, and you're so good with children. And then Simon's like, oh my God, you're right. And that's it. And it's really weird. Like, if I think about Bridgerton, if I like meditate on Bridgerton, I'm like, wow, that was a clusterfuck. I liked parts of it, and unfortunately, I'll probably watch a second season, but like on a storytelling level, they really messed up IMO, because when you have that big of a conflict and that like dirtying of a protagonist, I think it's really hard to bring them back into like happy love land. But that's what they did. They just brought them back without any of the work. It was like they didn't build a bridge to carry them back. They didn't do it. It was like I was thinking about it, and it's like if you went to a really fancy restaurant and you've got 3 courses. It's like a prefix, and your first course is just amazing. It's like, I don't know, shrimp scampi, and it's like so fresh and vibrant, and it's got like crisp flavors, and it's like hot and delicious and like melts in your mouth. And then the second course is like a plate, and on it someone has like defecated and like slaughtered a pig, and when they bring this course out, they like unveil it to you, and they're like, and you're like, you glance at it and you feel confusion, because this isn't what you were set up for. You thought you were in a fancy restaurant, and they leave it on your table, and you feel overwhelmed by confusion, betrayal, disgust. And then they come with your third course, and they're like, you didn't like the second course? How weird. And they like pull it away like it's not weird for someone to defecate on a plate and serve it to you. And then the last course is like, fine, it's like a slice of pizza. And you're like, okay, this restaurant's insane, because this doesn't make any sense. And that's how I would sum up the plot of Bridgerton. Good costumes, liked the first 40%, went way downhill, never fixed the problems that it put in place, and its protagonists were not only unlikable, but like condemnable in some pretty big ways. Real bad.